U.S. President Donald Trump's so-called Liberation Day is hours away, a day when he has pledged to reveal sweeping global tariffs. Some markets have already been falling because of the uncertainty. A slight rise in Taiwan's markets in the final hours ahead of U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement of fresh, long-threatened tariffs. It's an exception, as other stocks in Asia continue to slide over fears the U.S. policy could plunge the economy into a downturn. Taking a longer view, Taiwan's most valuable stock, chipmaker TSMC, has fallen almost 16% since Trump took office in January. Trump is set to make what he says will be his biggest trade move yet. This time, reciprocal tariffs, a sort of tax price match expected to apply to all countries. Those foreseen to be hit the hardest, a group of nations Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has dubbed the Dirty 15, a list believed to be of countries with the biggest trade imbalances with the U.S., which would include Taiwan. Without more details, Taipei says it cannot be sure it will get hit with the levies, but it's devised a working group of officials to prepare for the worst.
这个经贸小组呢，由行政院在负责。譬如说如果加10%，我们应该怎么做？如果加25%，我们会怎么做？所以所有的情境我们都经过这个分析推估，那么找出因应的方法。
Since taking office 2 months ago, Trump has already imposed tariffs on critical metals, a blanket tariff on all Chinese shipments, and goods from Canada and Mexico not covered by a 2020 deal. Just last week, Trump added a tariff on all foreign cars and related parts. As for what's to come,
if it's simply reciprocal, maybe the response won't be so bad. If it's a blanket across-the-board tariff announcement where every country, regardless of whether you're a partner, an ally, or a free trade partner of the United States, if everyone's getting 20%, then that's really complicated for everyone.
Trump has said the goal is to revive American production and stop other countries from, quote, ripping off the United States.
Take a look at trade with Asia. I wouldn't say anybody is treated as fairly or nicely.
Recently, Washington has kept Taiwan on its foreign trade barriers list, highlighting blocks to U.S. meat and cars into the country. On top of that, Trump has also long threatened separate tariffs on imported chips, Taiwan's most valuable sector, a tax that would go beyond simply reciprocating tariffs.
Taiwan does have some high tariff rates, actually some very high tariff rates on particularly agriculture products. And you have products like, semiconductors and a lot of ICT products, which essentially go tariff-free these days. It's already one of the most free trade, fair trade industries in the world. And so they're about to get hit with a very unfair tax.
As Taiwan braces for Trump's announcement, other countries are already standing ready to respond. Europe saying it will take strong measures if it must. But for now, all there is to do is wait and see what the U.S. president has in store. Justin Wu and Joyce Tseng for TaiwanPlus. Some economists are already warning U.S. tariffs could damage global trade. For more on what this can mean for markets in Asia, earlier I spoke more with Riley Walters, who you just heard from. Walters is a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C. Of course, a lot of speculation as to what exactly Trump's tariffs will be. He's also called out trade with Asia, saying it's not done fairly. How are you expecting U.S. allies and partners in this region to respond?
I suspect that a lot of people might wait and see for perhaps the Canadian-Mexico response, perhaps the European response, which is probably going to be a little bit more hawkish. Countries like Japan and South Korea and Taiwan, I don't think they're going to necessarily want to get ahead of these other countries with announcements of reciprocal tariffs if they want to hit back. I think some countries do want to reduce their tariffs. They do want to have a good working relationship with this administration. India, for example, has announced it will reduce its tariffs. The problem is, are they going to get an exemption tomorrow or not? I'm skeptical. And this really then pulls in the question, why should we even negotiate then if we're going to get tariffs anyway?
For Taiwan specifically, what do you think Taipei needs to be prepared to do in response to these tariffs?
It really is much more difficult for an economy, for a government like Taiwan, because its two main trade and economic partners are really the US and China. Domestic competition in China is just unfair to foreign enterprise. And that includes Taiwanese companies now. Then what do you do with the United States when you have a government that is less interested in bringing in foreign trade? They want foreign investment. Sure. TSMC, great. MediaTek, great. But what about the hundreds of other small and medium enterprises that simply cannot put that kind of manufacturing or investment into the United States? Really, what the government in Taiwan is going to have to start preparing for is a lot of domestic challenges, which come from their companies losing the ability or losing profits from reduction of exports to the United States.